Hey everybody, this is Greg Ryder, CEO and founder of Angel Investors Network and the author of the new book, Saving America One Crowd at a Time. And at Angel Investors Network, we've been serving the entrepreneurs and investors since 1997. So I want to say thank you for joining us for another live Google Hangout where we interview investors, entrepreneurs, thought leaders with the goal to give you some wisdom that can be life-changing depending on what you do with it. That's our goal. So we appreciate your time. We know this is your most valuable asset, and I promise you we're going to do our best to make sure that this is a great use of your time. Now, to celebrate the new crowdfunding laws that just came out last week, here's what we're going to do. I have this book. It's a physical book. You stay till the end of this Google Hangout. I'm going to give you a link where you can get a copy of my book for free, absolutely for free. I'll give you a digital copy too and some other great tools for entrepreneurs, the business clarity document, a couple other things to help you do that. So hang on, don't leave early. I'm gonna give you that link at the end of this Hangout so you can get my free book for free. And I wanna share with you real quick, our mission is real simple. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs succeed and create wealth. And our vision is really American made, right? It's to build a community online that supports our mission with the goal to perpetuate free enterprise and capitalism. We're big junkies when it comes to free enterprise and capitalism. We think it's the best system on planet Earth, and we want to continue that going. We also believe in what I call cooperative capitalism. And this is a mindset where we believe the world is big enough, the markets are big enough for everyone to succeed. So we need to help each other get to where they're going, right? And better said by a mentor of mine that I remember, listening to and learning from when I was 20 years old, Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar had this famous quote that he said, "You can have everything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want." So that's what we're all about. So with that being said, we're an education and marketing focused nationwide network of angel investors, successful entrepreneurs, investment bankers, marketing experts, lawyers, and accountants that are committed to transferring knowledge to you that can help you get to where you want to go. We also publish the Angel Investors newsletter, which is a nationwide newsletter reporting on news and things of that nature in the angel world and helping entrepreneurs succeed. So with that being said, today's guest is, I'm excited about because we just got done talking and we have a lot in common, and I can see that we're going to do a lot of stuff together. And his name is Aubrey. And I should ask you how to pronounce your name. Chernick?
Chernick.
How do you pronounce it? Chernick. Okay, so Aubrey Chernick. So Aubrey is one of the founders of NextGen Crowdfunding, and we're going to be talking about crowdfunding. We're going to be talking about some of this stuff and why he positioned and what he's all about. But with that, so thank you for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
So Greg, this is amazing. The timing of your book is just phenomenal about how a group of people in a crowd can help fund startups and emerging businesses. The timing is phenomenal because, as we know, this year, 2015, became a pivotal year, a milestone year in which the SEC finally enabled equity crowdfunding for accredited investors. Before, it was limited to the 8.5 million, it was limited to 8.5 million accredited. Now they've opened it up to unaccredited investors, which is about 240 million people. And so our mission, like Greg's, is to help connect, to help educate and connect all of these investors so they can support these startups and emerging businesses that are trying to chase the American dream. So Greg, thanks so much for having me on the show today.
I appreciate it. This is awesome. And again, it's like-minded people make the world go round. So this is so cool. And it was cool how we met because I've known Devin Blaine for, I want to say 15 years or something. And so she connected us. And so it's just awesome. So here's what I want to do, everybody. I'm going to go through what I call the rapid fire wisdom questions. And these questions, we're going to have two segments. One where it's targeted for the investor's wisdom, because we know there are people out there that are watching Shark Tank and going, man, I'd invest in that deal. But we want to make sure you get educated and you do it properly. You don't lose your money. Then we know there's entrepreneurs that need education, and we're going to give them some wisdom too. And then after we get done with my rapid fire 2 segments there, we're going to roll right into what Aubrey's involved with and the next gen. He's got an event coming up we want to see you guys at next week. So with that being said, let's roll right into it. So here's my first question. Now, these are questions designed for the wisdom for the entrepreneurs. So how important is it to you that high net worth investors and with the new laws that people can invest in support entrepreneurs, and why?
So the key takeaway for entrepreneurs is that they can be supported by accredited investors, 8.5 million of them. That's been around through crowdfunding since September of 2013 through something called Title II or 506C and 506D. But now what's happening is this year, they can also access a lot of other investors, the unaccredited ones. So there's two ways to kind of go after funding for your startup or your company. One is to try and get a lot of high net worth people that are going to maybe invest $10,000, $20,000 or more. That's one strategy, a classic strategy. But the crowdfunding approach is, as you know, is to get lots and lots of average Americans. And so with equity crowdfunding now opened up under Title IV and next year Title III, it means the millions of crowdfunding donors now can be crowdfunding owners. Now, crowdfunding donors, they typically might only invest or spend a few $100s. So in this new world, there's a dual approach. Yes, you can still go after accredited investors, high net worth people, ultra high net worth, etc. But in parallel, you can go after the crowd. You can solicit fundraising for the crowd, etc. And again, they might only be putting in $1,000 or $2,000 or $500. So it's a different type of environment there in which you can now really go after a lot of money from, a lot of Americans.
No, it's a real game changer. And again, the whole point is we want to support entrepreneurs and them creating these jobs that makes our country great. So here's my next question for you. So what is the number one thing that you would tell a new investor? Somebody's going, look, I want to invest in these deals. I want to put some of my money in this entrepreneur. What would you tell them that he or she should do, or what she should look at? That just one quick tip of what they should do to be a successful investor in these early stage companies.
Sure, of course, venture capitalists have a whole set of rules they go by. But for the new investor, they just need to make sure they balance the emotional connection, the vibe, or that emotional connective tissue that I call it, with logic. So they have to understand, does this company and their product really have a great vibe, a really great potential? Does it really resonate with them? That's really important to know. If it doesn't, move on. But secondly, the other issue is don't be enamored only with the emotion. Try and take a look at some of the other background issues, not all of them, but you can understand, do they have a management team? Do they have any experience? Do they have any track record or traction? The classical due diligence attributes that seasoned investors would look at.
No, I love it. I love it. So again, this is the kind of stuff that we want you to look at and listen to and pay attention to. And I'm going to add one thing to that. Prepare yourself to invest in 10, 20 deals, right? Because the more you can diversify, the more chance you have of being a successful investor as well as making those great returns. So here's number 3 rapid fire question. What's the number one thing you look for for your personal investment strategy? What do you look for in a deal when you're doing your investing?
Actually, the same thing I just mentioned a second ago. I try and see, do they have a message? Do they have a product? Do they have a business direction that appeals to me, that I think from an intuitive point of view, is attractive? And then I engage the analytical part of my brain. I say, well, there's a nice story here. The product looks great, or the product potential looks totally amazing. But then I turn on the logical side of my head and I say, well, wait a minute. Have they done this before? Does the founder have any experience? Do they have any reality beyond the dream? Can they make it a reality? So those are the two key things I'm constantly weighing: the intuition and the logical judgment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. The intuition. And again, some of us are lacking in the intuition side of things, but my wife, she's got it nailed. I can't tell you how many times from an intuition standpoint, she said, don't do that investment. And I did it anyway, based on some logic or something, and it didn't work out. So, okay. So question number 4.
And Greg, we all know that the logical people that have a solid experience and analytical background, whether they're from Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, or whether they're from Wall Street, etc., we know they also have a track record of missing great opportunities where their intuition said pass, and they often miss on big, big opportunities. So I would say Don't weigh only the fact side. Use your intuition and your judgment. Combine both of those.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so issue number 4. Do you have anything that you would suggest to an investor, or for use? Like I have a couple myself, but do you have any like red flags, things that you're talking to somebody that come up, that when that comes up, it's like the deal's done, it's over? Like what are the things that you might look for that would be red flags that would scare you away, and that you could suggest to an investor to walk away from a potential deal?
Sure, you can obviously look them up on the internet, see if there's been any problems, any lawsuits, etc. And also listen very carefully for inconsistencies in their story. Oh yeah, we've been working on this product for 5 years, etc. And it came out last year, and we're going to have a lot of customers coming soon. Excuse me? It came out last year, and you're going to have a lot of customers coming soon. What does that mean? So listen very carefully for inconsistencies in their story.
No, I love that one. That's a good one. And I use that as well. And so one of the ones that I do is commitment. So I ask questions that allow me to get some insight to their commitment. And if I find that there's a lack of commitment, I'm done. I'm out, because and I know without the proper commitment, these entrepreneurs, they can't see it through. Like, for instance, one of the questions I ask is, how much money have you had your friends and family invest, or have you asked your friends and family to invest? The minute they say, oh, I'd never ask my friends and family to invest, I'm like, okay.
That's a really great one. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay. So now let's move on to a little bit of wisdom for the entrepreneur, and dive into that side of thing. What's the number one piece of advice that you would give or share with an entrepreneur that he or she should be aware of when it comes to being successful at their venture? Not necessarily raising money, maybe raising money, but what's the one thing that you think that they should be aware of and they should concentrate on when talking to investors just to be successful?
So you're going to see I'm a broken record. For my success in my business career, it's always been combining intuition and logic. So again, when you're talking to an audience, you need to understand what that audience is. If it's an investor, they want to hear a little bit of the story, but they want to hear a lot of facts and figures and commitment, as you said. If you're talking to consumers, they don't need all the facts and consumers. They want to hear more about the products. If you're talking to a casual investor, again, they want to have a certain blend. So you need to really understand your audience and understand to what degree your audience is more of an analytical type of thinker, or whether your audience is a little bit more emotional, and make sure that you craft the right message in the right balanced way.
Yeah, guy, I love that. So as a marketing guy, constantly entrepreneurs are wasting time pitching, talking to, chasing the wrong person, the wrong customer, the wrong client, the wrong investor. I always tell people, you got to spend the time to find that ideal profile customer, investor, and go spend your time there. And you just hit it. I love it. Love it. Okay, so what's the number one mistake that you look at a lot of deals, you see a lot of entrepreneurs, you've been around, you're seasoned. What's the number one mistake that you see entrepreneurs repetitively make over and over and over again that they should be concerned about?
It's really, really simple. Greg, you know this. Entrepreneurs are classically in love with their baby. And what is their baby? Their product. It doesn't matter whether it's a software product or a piece of art or design or a fitness or fashion product, etc. They're in love with their product, and they are not sufficiently in love or connected to the customer or prospect. So they will spend their time focusing on polishing their product or taking master classes on how to polish their music, and they don't spend the right amount of time focusing on who the ideal customer is and how they should connect with them. In fact, there's a whole approach out there that people call MVP, minimal viable product. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, when they do minimal viable product, even though they should, they still are not sufficiently interested or focused on customers. So many entrepreneurs, they're frankly not interested in marketing. They're not interested in branding. They're not interested in lead generation. And yet these are the core elements. So every entrepreneur needs to pull themselves out of their product-oriented shell and stretch and make that customer connection, that prospect connection in their DNA.
I hope you're listening, entrepreneurs, because without that, you fail, you flunk. You won't make it past second base. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, that's awesome. So here's another good one. So everyone's watching Shark Tank. I love Shark Tank TV show for this reason. It's educating both new investors and entrepreneurs on all kinds of areas that investors look for. One being valuation. One of the biggest issues we see constantly, week after week after week, is entrepreneurs coming into the Shark Tank and saying that they have this valuation that's outlandish and overvalued. So what's the number one piece of advice that you would give to an entrepreneur that they should consider about valuation, and how would they go about coming up with their valuation? What's your best ideas and strategies there?
Really, really important. When an entrepreneur overvalues their company, it shows that they are an amateur. If they undervalue their company, it shows they're an amateur. They need to make sure that they value their company appropriately. That shows that they have some professionalism in how they think. And professionalism is extremely important to communicate as part of a pitch, whether it's to consumers or whether it's to investors. Now, there's lots of books and classic ways on the right way to look at your business from a valuation, depending on what stage it's in, early stage, later stage, angel stage, et cetera, as well as the type of business. Is it a labor-intensive business? Is it a business that can scale because it's got viral capability, because it's an app or a piece of software, et cetera? So there's lots of work out there that tells you the right way, the right ratios, whether it's a ratio of revenue or a ratio of income, et cetera, to properly value your business. Just make sure that you're in the right range, because if you're not, investors and professional investors are going to see you're not really professional.
And that's so well said. And again, we have people in our network that help do valuation studies, and I know that you're going to be providing help in that area as well. And again, the thing I want to say about that, if it's not your genius, it's not your job. So entrepreneurs try to do all this kind of stuff. And the other thing that I'm always saying, and I think you'll agree with this, is that most of the time, you only get one shot to pitch and present to a check writer. I mean, a guy that actually writes checks, an actual investor. And if you blow it on all these different things, you're done. And then you get in this vicious cycle that you blow it with one investor, another investor, another investor, and we're kind of a closed circuit. It's not like it's like a big community. You're really going to hurt yourself if you don't get this stuff down. So we were talking about this earlier. Let me ask you, what's your best advice that you would give an entrepreneur about marketing their investment opportunity? Because I'm always telling people, look, your investment opportunity is no different than your product or service. You're packaging up and you're marketing your investment as an opportunity. What's your best advice that you would give an entrepreneur on how to market their opportunity?
Well, Greg, I'd like to get back to that, but I want to go back to your last comment, if I could, for a second.
Sure.
Right. So what you were talking about implying is that you don't need to try and do it all yourself if you're an entrepreneur. If you're going to do that one pitch to someone that could be an investor, feel free and comfortable going out to get other people to help you with the pitch. I think that was underlying the comment that you were just making. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
So one of the attributes of entrepreneurs is they really believe in DIY, do it yourself. There's kind of a passion that says, gee, I've gone to school, I've done this, I've worked for this company. Now I'm going to shape this creation, my baby, this vision that I have, and I'm going to do it largely myself. Maybe there'll be a few other people, developing this, but it's going to be my baby, etc. So really like the euphoria of doing things yourself. I know that because that's the way I was when I started my software company 30 plus years ago. I wanted to do it all myself. And when people are in that mode of doing it themselves, they want to pioneer themselves. And they don't really have a mentality for going out and seeking help from other people. So I would say that I appreciate, and people do appreciate, the DIY mentality. And there's a lot of things you can do, but you should feel free to stretch outside your do-it-yourself type of zone and bring in some advisors that you're advisors in the areas that you're not really knowledgeable about. Okay. Now, secondly, in terms of marketing, I mean, we can go over this, because it's rule number 101 that you focus on, Greg, that every marketing professional focuses on, Greg. You have to know your audience. When you have a product, who is the audience for? Or ideally, when you start your company, rather than thinking about a product, is it possible for you to start a company where first you start thinking about the audience. In most cases, the answer to that is no, because the entrepreneur is more in love with their product idea than they are with the audience. So if you have an audience, it's often helpful to try and focus on audiences that you personally have experience with, as opposed to audiences that you really don't know. Because if you focus on an audience that you have a personal experience with, that means you understand that target audience, that consumer audience, from an emotional, from a full cycle, from a 360-degree point of view. You really understand all the multi-dimensions. You understand the core DNA of that audience. That is extremely important to know, because if you have that insight and intuition of that audience, then you'll be able to craft the elements of your product, the shape of your product, the features, designs, and you'll be able to craft how you connect that audience to your product. So you have to really know what your audience is, not at a superficial level of this demographic. Go beyond demographics. Everyone that's created a startup, they need to understand the core difference between demographics and psychographics. And they can read about this. I know, Greg, I'm sure you talk about this all the time. Every entrepreneur has to learn the word psychographics, and how if they are stuck on demographics, it's not sufficient.
I love it. No, you're hitting it on the head. And again, entrepreneurs need to really take this to heart, because without putting this together, you don't stand a chance. And I know in some areas, we teach people, like, they want to make money. You say, go find a hot, hungry market, find out what they want and give it to them. Right. So, but entrepreneurs don't work that way, right? They create their little dream, they create a little invention, they try to sell it to everybody. So it's like, you need to do a little combination of both. If you've already got your little widget, you got to do this, you got to figure it out, right? So, and there's ways to do that, and there's experts that do that. So don't try to figure it out yourself. Figure out, find the person that can help you do it and accelerate that point to where you get the information you need. So that's the end of my rapid fire questions. Thank you. That's awesome. So now let's move into a couple things, and I'm hoping that you're going to be open to this, but would you mind sharing with our audience, a little bit about you, like maybe 3-4 minutes about you and how you made your money and how you came into having such a passion for helping entrepreneurs?
Sure. I was very, very lucky. I was up in Canada, living the Canadian dream. And I had some experience in the software business. It was back in around 1976, 75, et cetera. And mainframe computers around the US and North America were going through a refurbishment of getting a new operating system. We hear, from Microsoft or Apple all the time. They have a new operating system. So IBM introduced a new operating system that would unleash the dawn of real-time mainframe processing. Sounds stupid today, but at one time mainframes only did batch processing, real-time. Fortune 500 companies buying $10 million, $100 million of computer equipment, and it needs to make sure it worked in real time. Those systems would crash. I saw the need. I saw an audience, Greg. I saw people with money. I said, there needs to be a way for these new customers to understand, why is their mainframe system crashing? I developed a software. I didn't have any marketing capability, so I invented a marketing capability of using videotapes throughout the computer industry to talk about my product. I had free trials. Long story short, I started when I was about 26 years old, and I grew the company to about 2,000 people, about $300 million, and I ultimately ended up selling it to a company that turned out to be my largest customer that would buy my products to analyze the IBM mainframe computers. And who do you think that customer was? IBM.
There you go.
They had to buy my product to figure out why the products that they built failed. So they became my largest customer. I sold them the company, etc. But I love marketing. I use branding. I use telemarketing. We use market intelligence. I would have not been successful if it weren't for the marketing approaches, the psychographic marketing approaches, and the intelligence that we did, the mailing list that we did. I would have not been successful at all if it weren't for the marketing side of the business.
Wow, that's fantastic. So let me ask you this question. So now you sold your company, had this great success. What has attracted you to crowdfunding and helping early stage startups and the entrepreneurs?
Sure. So what's really interesting is I would love if, you're going to laugh, Greg, I would love if entrepreneurs were interested in marketing and branding, etc. But between you and me, Greg, they're not. We know that. They're not. I did some research, a lot of research, and I found out a secret that, Greg, I'll share with you just between the two of us. It turns out, although entrepreneurs are not really interested in marketing, they are interested in raising money. Just between you and me. Don't share that with anyone else. So when I heard about equity crowdfunding, I said, wait a minute, this is going to be great. It's going to be great, obviously, to help young companies get started. In my case, I mean, I didn't have any investment, outside investment. I bootstrapped the whole company, etc. But I was extremely lucky. But today, if you want to be out there, you really need some help after, friends and family, etc. And as we know, the equity markets really are not there. The IPO markets really are not there for most startups. And the VCs are kind of gatekeepers. They only fund a few hundred companies each year. So it's easier to get into an Ivy League school than it is to be funded by, venture capitalists, et cetera, in Silicon Valley, et cetera. So a lot of people want to create startups. We don't have enough jobs. We don't have people, our youth doesn't have enough jobs. We don't have enough youth in well-paying jobs. So startups really are a new hope for our economy and for our society, but they need a jump start. And so funding is really important. So when I heard about equity crowdfunding, really to help the small startup company chase the American dream, I said, this is really, really going to be exciting. It's going to be, in a sense, transformational. And so that's one of the reasons I became excited in this whole area. And fundamentally, I believe, Greg, that there's a new era of really equity crowdfunding that's really going to help us spark a whole new economy.
No, and that's why you and I are on the same page. And Aubrey had never done a Google Hangout. This is his first one. He did not know I'd written a book. We got introduced to a mutual friend. So we are so like-minded in this area. It's unbelievable. And I'm one of these guys that just comes right and says, look, this administration and even some past administrations, our capital formation system is broken. Yes. Where does the entrepreneur go? And crowdfunding is our answer to that. It's already been proven with the rewards-based crowdfunding. And I want to share with you a little thing that I always talk about. People have heard of trickle-down economics. Well, I call it, I have this phrase that I call torrential downpour economics. Right. And torrential downpour economics is when I was in the early 80s, I raised the original seed capital for Home Shopping Network.
Wow.
Right. And if you can imagine me with a little bit longer hair, looking a lot younger, calling you up going, Aubrey, you got to get in this deal. They're going to sell stuff on the television, 724, 365. And back then, cable was just being funded. We were raising money for Daniels Cable and the cable industry. And no one had ever bought anything off the television with their credit card, right? And credit cards were even just kind of in their infancy stages. And people were like, Ryder, you're crazy. No one's going to buy anything off the television. Well, you think about that $600,000 that we originally raised for them and the vision that we believed in the entrepreneur and what they've done with that over the years, the shipping, the accountants, the bookkeepers, the manufacturing, the facility. I mean, it's a torrential downpour economics. And then I take that, okay, for those people who don't know about Home Shopping Network, let's take that to the Apple iPhone, right? If the Apple iPhone and some of this stuff hadn't come out, where would our economy be? You think of the tens of millions of jobs affected by that phone and the cases and the earphones and the earbuds and all the apps and the app business, all that kind of stuff. Where would we be? So it's imperative that those of us that have been fortunate financially and experiential, right, with human capital, we support entrepreneurs and we support the entrepreneurial dream because that's what makes America great. Exactly. We need to get Donald. I'm taking Donald Trump's line there.
It'll make your head spin if you know what I mean. Yeah. Sure. So crowdfunding and entrepreneurship really is essential for our economy. As I said, it will spark a new economy. It's really essential to help it reignite the American dream that we had. It's been maybe lost to some degree, et cetera. So we need to make sure that we ignite this American dream by startups and by the crowdfunding funding that it's going to help support these startups.
So let me ask you a question, because one of the big issues that a lot of people had with formulating these laws when it came out was, well, the risk associated with the scam artists. And I want to just get your take off on, as these portals get launched and allowing the small, uneducated, unsophisticated investor invest their money, what's your thoughts on the risks associated, them losing their money, and from your perspective, how technology is going to help prevent that.
Sure. Well, I don't have a book to hold up like you do that they can register and get that book with their email address, etc. But on our website, www.nextgencrowdfunding.com, guess what? We have some educational sessions, and in that we've addressed explicitly this issue, the concern about fraud and abuse in equity crowdfunding. So for the right answer, we have two really august professionals. Someone we just hired, Dr. Richard Swart, who we just hired as our Chief Strategy Officer, and also Sam Greenblatt, Sam Guzik, who is a securities attorney, president of the Crowdfunding Professional Association, and also known to be the father of equity crowdfunding. So I wanted to get that in there because we don't have a book. But the answer is, if you listen to these two gentlemen, what they'll say is, if you take a look at the history of how much fraud has there been in equity crowdfunding around the world, it's been very, very small, number one. Number two, the SEC is trying to be extremely careful in terms of how it protects investors. Under Title IV and Title III, coming up next year, the SEC is putting in a number of different measures intentionally designed to protect, the consumer in these areas. So there are protections there. Of course, you and I would always say, buyer beware. Even in reward-based crowdfunding, there have been some issues. So there's always going to be issues, and you need to keep your eyes open. But right now, there's been very little, there's been a very small history of fraud in the equity crowdfunding area, Greg.
So, and I love that. And then the other part of this new law is that these new portals where you're going to be able to go and raise capital and invest, they're going to have community tools where, quote unquote, the crowd can discuss the issuer and the investment opportunity. So I like to tell people, look, there are so many smart people out there that have time and will do time that they're going to fret out the bad actors. They're going to talk about the deals, and the crowd's either going to get you funded or the crowd's going to kill your deal. So there's some risks associated with putting your product out there front and center, because if the crowd comes in, they're going to find the bad actors. They're going to talk about the scam guys, and it's going to be in a community forum. You're dead, right? So it's a good thing. And on the converse side of that thing, when you have something good and viral, they're going to support that as well. So I think that's a great feature of the new laws, the new portals, and what they're putting in place. Is that it's kind of like eBay. Remember eBay? I'm buying from Aubrey, and Aubrey's selling to me or whatever. And if Aubrey sends me a broken item, I can go and I can rate him, right? They're going to have tools and things like that. They're going to keep the bad guys out. It's going to. I think there's going to be little to no fraud because of that.
Right.
And so I'm excited about it.
Yes. I mean, I would say there is a lot of wisdom in terms of people ultimately investing in a company to validate that company. That there is some wisdom in that. But at the same time, I would say people still have to be knowledgeable and thoughtful. If you take a look at some of the billboards that are out there, bulletin boards that are out there on different investment sites, you have people that are intentionally trying to manipulate stocks, pump and dump, trying to build it up or bring it down. You have trolls that are there. There's been lawsuits in the case of Yelp where people were spending, money in India buying positive ratings for their company or getting negative ratings for other companies. So we need to be really, really conscious of the world that we live in, and make sure that when we're looking at the ratings, that sometimes people will try and hype up companies, or they're going to try and downgrade companies based on their rhetoric.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that's, again, there's going to be some flaws. It's going to be a thing that we work through. And it's like I tell people when it comes to Bitcoins, I remember people telling me, get in Bitcoin, I'm like, it'll never happen. No one's going to ever do that. Now here, look at Bitcoin. But my point is that entrepreneurs will fix all these issues. There's so many smart people getting involved in this crowdfunding. It's already stimulating the economy. It's already creating jobs, new offices, new crowdfunding portals, new accounts, new CPAs, new educational content. It's already taking an effect on our economy in that fashion. So it really is exciting. So let's talk about this real quick. So tell me about NextGen Crowdfunding. What are your goals? How can all of our listeners support what you're doing? And then let's roll, after you talk about that, let's talk about the event coming up.
Sure. So there's a brave new world, as you were alluding to, for equity crowdfunding. Generally, we're taking a look at NextGen Crowdfunding is going to focus on Title IV and Title III, meaning we're looking at this new world of equity crowdfunding in which unaccredited as well as accredited investors can participate. There's so much online education about this whole crowdfunding area. We're going to provide this education both for issuers that are trying to raise money as well as for investors. Secondly, we want to make sure, and we're not going to provide advice. We're not going to say this company is better than that company. We're not going to provide advice, but we're going to provide forums, educational vehicles, etc. In general, our education will be free. People just have to register to get this information. We'll have discussion areas also. And another aspiration we have is really to be a matchmaker. So if you're looking down the line for crowdfunding investments to invest in, we want to be the go-to place where you can come to. Now, right now, there's not a lot, frankly, of equity crowdfunding deals for Title IV and Title III that are live. There's going to be, but they're not right now. So those are the two things. We're going to provide education, news and awareness, etc. And secondly, we're going to help really try and provide extra visibility for issuers, for entrepreneurs that want to make sure they can efficiently convey their crowdfunding campaign to investors. We're not going to be a crowdfunding portal. We're not an investment portal. We're not a broker dealer. We're just there to help raise the visibility of the crowdfunding campaigns that different issuers have so they can efficiently connect with the right investor.
No, and I love that, because you think about that. Aubrey and his team are already anticipating how crowded this space is and how it's going to get even more and more and more. So in order to try to serve the need of the entrepreneurs and the investors, he wants to be that go-to place that builds the credibility, builds the trust, earns your credibility. So when they share with you various different opportunities, you'll know that there's been somebody kind of behind the scenes that's bringing that to you and helping expose you and get more visibility, with the end goal that more deals get funded, more jobs get created, more get what they want.
Exactly, exactly.
No, that's awesome. So let's talk about the event you got coming up, but I'm going to pull up it on the screen while you're talking about it, but tell us about the event that's coming up.
So this is an amazing event. It's our first event, and it's focused on equity crowdfunding, specifically Title IV, Title III, or as I said, crowdfunding for unaccredited plus accredited investors. We've got amazing speakers, speakers that represent different crowdfunding platforms. We're going to have Seed Invest. We're going to have a Start Engine. We're going to have FundPos, a number of different organizations that are there. We're going to go over the history of crowdfunding, again, with two key figures, Sam Guzik from the Crowdfunding Professional Association. We have Richard Swart, our Chief Strategy Officer. And we also are very pleased to announce that we're going to have a senior person from Indiegogo, Amanda Hatt, and she is in charge of looking at the whole Indiegogo approach to equity crowdfunding. We're very happy to have her in participation there also. And then we've got special sections that will explore what does equity crowdfunding mean for startups? What does it mean for accredited investors, unaccredited investors? We're going to talk about crowdfunding campaigns, the best practices in crowdfunding campaigns. So it's going to be a very, very rich environment. And for those that are not able to attend because it's filling up, frankly, we're going to have online videos that people can get after the event. And on the website, there's a link of how they can get these free online videos after the event, which takes place November 19th.
So it's a one-day event, November 19th. It's in Santa Monica, California at the Lowe's Hotel. You guys can check it out and go to NextGen Crowdfunding. So it's NEXTGEN crowdfunding.com for more information on that. And, you know, you just brought up the fact you got Indiegogo coming in. And do you know any inside scoop? Is Indiegogo going to get into the equity crowdfunding? They made that decision. And then also wanted to ask you, that made me think of, I heard rumors that possibly Google and some of these other big corporations are going to be getting into this crowdfunding platform as well. Do you have any insight there?
So you'd like to hear some inside scoop about what?
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't sure if I understood your question correctly. So
yeah, no,
I cannot. I don't know any inside scoop, etc. But I do know this. It's publicly known. The head of Indiegogo has talked a number of times how they have interest in the equity crowdfunding area in general. They haven't communicated, to my knowledge, whether that interest is about Title IV or Title III. Title IV, again, being in effect now, Title III next year. We don't know that. But we do know that their main person in charge of exploring this whole area of equity crowdfunding, Amanda Hatt, is going to be at our event. And we're going to have a fireside chat. And we're going to explore with her some important issues, Greg. One of the issues we want to explore is the expansion of the evolution from the existing reward-based crowdfunding industry to the equity-based crowdfunding industry. And maybe more importantly, the expansion of a person that maybe today is a reward-based crowdfunding donor who is donating products through Indiegogo, etc., to where they might be a crowdfunding owner. So it'll be very interesting to get her perspective on these different expansions that are taking place as we speak in the crowdfunding industry.
No, I'm going to be there. I want you guys listening to come up and say you met me on the hangout at this event. I'm going to be at this event because I'm excited about that, because if Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and they're the two biggest in the rewards-based side of things, and there's GoFundMe and a number of others that are also pretty big as well. But if they decide to get in this, it makes sense for them to. I guess they got all kinds of issues they got to think about, but it'd be interesting if they do get involved. Well,
hey, Greg, so you're going to be there. I wonder if it makes sense for us to maybe interview on the side, or I'm not sure if you're available, but we'd love to talk with you. And I'm not sure if you'd have anything to say in a panel, but let's talk some more about the event next week.
No, I would love that. I have a great keynote speech called Saving America, One Crowd at a Time. I actually did create a keynote speech that I've done a few times, just a rah entrepreneur. Let's get up, capitalism, free enterprise. Let's go, people.
Wow.
Hey, we're at the end of our time, everybody. I like to keep things right on time. And so I hope you've enjoyed today's interview and today's live hangout. I want you to check out nextgencrowdfunding.com. And hopefully you guys can make the event. If not, you can go there. You can sign up to get the videos that they're going to share with you, because they will be videoing a bunch of this stuff and then sharing it online. Because, again, their mission is like our mission. It's to help entrepreneurs succeed, as well as to help investors get in this game. And I'll close with this, and I'll ask if you have any closing statements, but I'll close with this. So my dad got me to investing when I was 19. By the time I was 21, I got my securities license. Then I bought the firm I worked for. I was hailed as the youngest owner of a full-service investment bank in the history of the country. That was my first big mistake in life. But back then, my dad was what I call the good old boy network. He got the call for all the hot new issues. He got the call for all the hot deals. So my question to you is, did you get the call for Google? Did you get the call for Facebook? Did you get the call for WhatsApp? If you're the kind of person that wants to invest and wants to get in this arena, you need to educate yourself. You need to get involved with these type of organizations, so you're going to get the call. And now with the new laws, you're going to have the opportunity to put in $250, $500, $1,000, $2,000 in lots of deals. And you might be that person that can say, I invested in this Facebook and now I'm up 1,000% or whatever that is. That's what it's all about. It's about supporting the entrepreneur, helping for enterprise and capitalism, creating jobs, stimulate the economy, and feeling good about your support for what's going on out there. So, Aubrey, what are your last comments? And we'll wrap it up and call it a day.
Well, let me just touch on that very last sentence that you said. Feeling good about yourself and how you're supporting these companies. That is the essence, Greg, of reward-based crowdfunding. So in equity-based crowdfunding, it is true, you can put in a few $100s. Now, if you put in $200 or $300 and you lose it all, it's not a big loss. If you triple it, it's not a big gain. So at a level of a couple $100, it's nice, and you can be a shareholder. But for many people, Greg, it's more than being a shareholder, it's being a stakeholder. Helping to support these little companies, these innovative companies as they chase the American dream, and even more importantly, especially for millennials that like to co-create, helping get on board on the same team with these small companies and chase the dream with them. So yes, it's about helping the economy, but really it's joining their team as an investor, helping them chase the American dream, regardless of whether you put in a couple $100 or thousands of dollars.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So we're on the exact same page. So this has been another live Google Hangout from Angel Investors Network. If you'd like to find out more about Angel Investors Network, go to angelnetwork.com. And as promised, if you guys go, I changed the website. If you go to Saving America, One Crowd at a Time. So instead of the @ symbol, you just put in the word AT, Saving America, One Crowd at a Time. You can sign up, get my free book. All I want you to do is just pay a minor fee of shipping and handling, and we'll put this in the mail to you today. So that's Saving America, One Crowd at a Time. Until then, everybody, do what I do. Wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude. Tell somebody you love them, and I promise you'll have a better day. This is Greg Ryder signing off. Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you, Greg.